Okay, it's about time. I guess is the crowd.
We have
Hi over there.
Justin and
My leg on that.
Logan.
That's not working.
Can we slide that back for you?
There you go. He's trying
Thank you.
to readjust.
Don't get old. It's no fun.
Okay, I'll stop.
Anyway, whoever doesn't know me, I'm Steve Morris, one of the owners here of the shareholders of Rubicon Springs. The group of us, we own 400 acres here, and it's probably the best buy any of us made.
Yeah, we're here.
And for your benefit, we have never taken a dime out of the place. Everything goes right back in, and it's solid. And having the private property in here makes it much easier to defend.
Yeah, absolutely right.
There's a lot of people don't realize that, but the road is an official county road. It's it can be defended in that sense, but it doesn't take away the fact that it has to be maintained. Or being a county road doesn't defend it if it isn't taken care of. And there's a lot of I hear rumbles of people saying the county's making a paved road out of it and all this kind of stuff. But all they're doing is saving it.
I don't know who you were talking to.
Jeep drivers.
All right.
And I need to apologize. I have an affliction of some kind that I get emotional rather easy, so just ignore it. I guess we got a couple more coming here.
That helped. Did I even it up for you?
Where are we going here?
Okay. The first non-native that saw this property was a horseback party that broke off from a wagon train coming across Nevada, and I just left a piece of paper in my bag here that I wanted.
I think it might have been right here.
This one? Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
I gotta have my cheat sheet. Thank you. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning, Steve.
All right, and in 1844, the Townsend Murphy Party, they were a horseback group that was traveling with a wagon train, but decided to break off somewhere in Nevada and go on their own. Probably because two reasons. They may have had advance information that told them that this was the lowest pass over the Sierra, or maybe they got to the point in Nevada that they could, or the other side of the lake, that they could actually see that this was the lowest pass. And it is the lowest pass in the Sierra coming across here. So anyway, the Townsend Murphy Party, they went through in here 1844. That's the first known non-native. In 1869, the Hunsucker brothers, in following that trail, discovered the mineral springs and the desirability of this area, and they set up a camp here and built some cabins and created what they called a stopping station. And the trail, the Rubicon Trail, became a very busy foot trail. Horses, mules, foot traffic, but it wasn't a wagon road at that point. And the reason for that, was at, I'm sure all of you have heard of Virginia City. The gold and silver rush was on, and the traffic on what we call Highway 50 was nose to tail. And it was just solid.
Yeah.
And so there was even stories about if you got off for any reason, it might take you a week to get back on. So anyway, the ones that were Coloma, Georgetown, all that mining area, to Virginia City, there was quite a bit of cross traffic. The miners, they'd work one end for a while, and then they'd go over to Virginia City for a while, and that's what the Hunsucker brothers were doing. They had a claim in either Coloma or Georgetown, and also they were working in Virginia City, and they learned to come this way. They could do it faster than getting on what we call US 50. Of course, they had to take a boat across the lake, but that was regular service in those days. There were steamboats on Tahoe. So that became a very well-traveled road, or trail. The Hunsucker brothers tied in with Sierra Nevada Vade. That's the lady's actual name, Sierra Nevada. Sierra Nevada. Vade Phillips. Her father ran Phillips on Highway 50. Some of you may remember Phillips. All that's left there is a sign now, but that was one of the stopping stations along Highway 50. And so Phillips' daughter got in and bought in with the Hunsucker brothers, and then she took it over totally and built the hotel. And the hotel was right there where our cabin is, and if you look inside the fence there's a row of foundation stones. So it proves that that was where the hotel was. And then if on the up front on the left side, or depending where you are, you'll see some hops growing up the stump there. And if you look at the pictures of the hotel, you'll in some of them it'll show you that batch of hops.
Wow.
So I mean, there's no question that's where the hotel was. I was in the hotel. I have to get you up to that point. And we're about there. They were charging $12 a week, which included food. It was a pretty expensive place, but it was very popular. And yet the $12 a week sounds very, very cheap, but you have to relate it to the cost of living in those days and what people's income was. In 1922, average annual income was $1,201. A Maxwell touring car was $885. An Overland Auto was only $550. That was a cheapie. Living room set, 3-piece, $124. Women's suit, $49.50. Men's shoes, $1.95. So it was all relative. But the draw here was two reasons. One was the mineral spring, and because people really did believe in the springs, and they were good. They were healthy. It was not much different than drinking carbonated water, and you can get a taste if you want. Right over there, behind the fire pit, up the slope a little bit, there's the one that you can dip a cup in and drink. That's the mineral spring ones that they were bottling and actually hauling out of here and selling in bars. Have a drink, better than whiskey. That was their slogan. The main spring was over at the other side of the road there, but we haven't been able to clean it up because the drain, it flows continuously. But the drain has been destroyed, and it's just mud over there now. So eventually we'll figure out a way to get the drain back. What the Unsuckers and probably Sierra Nevada worked on it also. There actually was a drain line from that spring to the river here, so that it never got muddy around it. And you'll see pictures in the book with groups of people around the springs there, and they're not standing in the mud. But you'll be able to identify that that's where the spring is. But what's happened is the road was actually over the top of the drain pipe. And some of you probably remember Mark Smith. He ran the Jeep Jamboree for many years, Jeepers Jamboree. But he got a bright idea and flooded that area and made it muddy. And then passed out money to the winners of a mud race if you ran in the mud in your bare feet. And as soon as I was involved in the property, I got that shut down because, there were bottles and all kinds of stuff in there. Terrible. But anyway, that softened up the area, and the vehicles running on it destroyed that drain line. So we haven't got that put back yet. But someday we will. But Maria cleaned out the spring over here and fixed it all up nice. And you can dip your cup and get a water. The hotel was built in 1891. It was a 16-room hotel. And then there was another building on this end of it that was probably the kitchen. At least some of the pictures indicate that was the kitchen area. And there was another cabin off to the right in the front, which maybe was the manager's office. I don't know. Can't tell. But anyway, first time I was in here, the piano was still in the lobby. The hotel was still could have been usable. Eventually, weather and vandalism destroyed the hotel, unfortunately. But that's just the way it went. My first trip in here was in 1947. My mind skips around, and I'm maybe not in chronological order, but don't worry about it. I came in here in a 1937 Dodge, 39, 6-cylinder, 3-speed Dodge pickup. 2-wheel drive, of course. But you have to realize that it was still a wagon road, or capable of being a wagon road in those days. And there were older cars running over it. You can see pictures in the book there of the old Dodges were I'm thinking in the 20s, early 20s, the Dodges were famous for having an extra low gear. They claimed you could get out and walk alongside it. Well, that's what it took for men here. And then the Model Ts had the Ruxel axle, and that was equivalent to a 2-speed axle. And so they could shift down, and they had plenty of power. My old 39 Dodge didn't have anything but a 3-speed. So anyway, we got in here fine, and downhill was good. Got here and explored the hotel. I was on the 3rd floor, and they had the walls were just single board walls, but they had papered them with newspapers, which helped the sound and so forth for the hotel. But anyway, I was up on the 3rd floor, which had a sloping ceiling, and it had newspapers also. Well, my girlfriend at the time was looking for a job, so I took my pocket knife. I cut out a help wanted ad. And, excuse me, and took it to her. She didn't get the job, but I got her. We were married for 64 and a half years.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right,
I have a
settle down.
question.
Yes.
Is there any pictures of inside the hotel? That you are aware of, or?
Trying to think of any, but I don't know of any. The piano was still in the lobby when I was here. The building was sound. Going the stairs up to the third floor were good. Everything was fine. If it had attention, it would still be here. And care. I've learned in later years, somebody that confessed that it was more than weather that brought it down. It was vandalism. And it was a crime. But it went down in the pile of debris was there for a while. Some of it was used for firewood, and then high water washed the rest away. As we do get high water. If you look on the side of the caretaker's cabin there's a mark. You can't see it from here, but by the ladder there's a mark that shows the high water, which was over my head. And that cabin took it fine.
When was that?
97.
97, yeah.
How high did it get last year?
I don't know. I wasn't here. I wasn't in at that time of the year anyway. No, I don't think it flooded last year. But it quite often gets enough to give maybe a foot on the meadow here. That's quite normal. And the cabin is a little bit higher than the meadow, and there's a low level that will take it through there if it doesn't get too much. But it one year floated all the logs and stuff that were around the meadow here, all down the other end. Okay, where was I? The hotel went down in, I think, 1953. It crashed in 53.
When did it shut down operation?
About 1923.
Just from people stopped coming?
Yes, there was various reasons. In the late 18s and early 19s, mineral springs or hot springs, springs of any kind, they were where people went. That's their vacations. That's what they did for their health, whatever else. That's where they went. And this was one of the few operating, mineral springs. So it got traffic pretty easy, but it was, or let's say, not easy, but it was enough demand to make it work. And to give you an idea of what people went through to get here, let's say there's in the book there's, in fact I have here, this is, that's the hotel register.
Yeah.
But it's in the order that people were here, over day after day. Ooh, thank you. So it's kind of hard to hunt for anybody in particular. The other book, right here, Wake Up, has been converted into alphabetical order. So if you want to look to see if any of your ancestors were here, you can see in this book. And while I've got my hands, this is available. I have some here. My son is a professional archaeologist, and he wrote this book, and it's very good. But that shows you a picture of the. That's another story I was just about to get to. That's a 1908 Mitchell. And there's pictures of it in the other book. Yeah, there's a picture of the Mitchell in the other book there. But the owner at that time, which I believe his name was Caldwell, also his brother owned the Mitchell dealership in San Jose and Oakland, and how they got the San Francisco driver. But anyway, in 1908, a woman newspaper reporter from San Francisco drove a new, he was a Mitchell dealer, the brother, a 1908 Mitchell from San Francisco to here and back to the Bay Area with no major problems. The story was, it was pretty tough though. In fact, they had a harder time getting between Woodland and Sacramento because of the mud and the water and all of that. But they got through there, got in here. They had planks and block and tackle with them. They were not dumb. They did some planning and actually drove in here, and there's the proof of it is right there.
How many days do you know, approximately?
The detailed story probably tells you that. It's in the book. But anyway, they came in here. Then they went back out, went to Reno, Carson City, and back 50 to the Bay Area with that 1908 Mitchell. That's the first known vehicle to be in here. Okay. You can tell I have a trouble keeping track of where I'm going. But... All right. A group known as Rubicon Soda Springs, Inc. bought this property in 1985. I was one of that original group. Mark Smith, I'm sure all of you have heard of Mark Smith, who created the Jeepers Jamboree many years ago. And I had been involved in the Jamboree in Newmark. And one day I got a call. I was living in the Bay Area, and he had the opportunity to buy this property. But he had to get so much money up for a down payment. So he was calling people to get involved. So I made a quick decision that I was not going to be not involved and have it go bad. So anyway, I mortgaged a couple of credit cards, put up my share of the money, and we got enough others. There was 20 of us originally. And Mark put the deal together with Bohemia Lumber Company that owned the property at the time. We had a balloon payment due on it, naturally, and we sweated some when the balloon payment came due, and Mark called around and Mark had the property surveyed by a timber cruiser to see if we might have to log to make our payment. The group, I was the only one that voted against logging. I would anything else to raise the money than to destroy it by logging it. So anyway, that was at the time the price of lumber was way up here, and it was feasible. We could have helicopter logged it and got some money out of it. But in a couple of weeks, it died. Fortunately, so nobody was pushing anymore to log it. So we all just dug deeper in our pockets.
Wow.
But we paid it off. And I'm sorry, I can't control this some days. Anyway, we all dug in and we borrowed some more money. A couple of our owners were better off and had funds available and put up the money, and we were able to get it paid off. And it was worth it.
Absolutely.
And we have taken no money out. We have taken nothing out of it. All we collect goes right back in. as you can see, it's being well cared for, and it's welcome that everybody comes. All right. Well, we're down to, I think we're only 16 owners now. There's 16 shares of stock out. Yeah, it wasn't incorporated originally, but then we did record it. Hey, my reflexes aren't that bad. There was several of the original investors were that worked for Jeep Corporation, and they were even some of them in Florida and other around the country, and they when the factory was bringing trips through, they would come sometimes, but they weren't any way to be regularly involved in it, and they gradually wanted out, a few of them. So we managed to buy out the 4 of them and to get it down to 16. And then there's been a couple of change of ownerships since then. Doc Hembrough was one of the original members. I don't know whether you guys know Doc Hembrough, but he was a doctor at South Lake Tahoe for years and years and years. He passed away, and his wife, V, was very much involved. She lived for this place. Then she passed away, and her share was picked up by others anyway. But we're 16 shares of stock. All right, let me see if I can get back on track here somewhere. Okay, if you're familiar with the trail going out from here, just before the big slab where a lot of people camp, the road goes up and out, kind of a little curve, and then it'll drop off some steps there. If you will look at the outer edge, and if you go down, walk down or outside it, you can see it better. But there's a corbel wall there. That's a rock stacked wall. That's part of the original road, and that's I think the only place that I know of that you can see that original corbel. And when you look at it today, why did they come around through all of this bumpy? Well, it wasn't that way then. That was all filled in, and it was all a wagon road. I'm sorry to say, but the 4-wheel drive vehicles have destroyed the road. Not the vehicles themselves. It's the misuse of the vehicles. And this is off the subject, but I want to say it anyway. Don't try to tow a vehicle out of here. That's what's destroying the trail. Towing, and they spin and chew and dig, and either if you can't winch it out, come back and fix it. But trying to tow them out is just not smart. Maybe for the owner of the vehicle, but not for the trail. That's my soapbox. All right, okay. Do you know what a Pelton wheel is? There's one sitting over there. That was actually working in here by one of the later owners. There was electricity in the hotel, and there was even electricity in the camp area that's across the river. Many of you probably don't even know there's a camp area over there because it's pretty hard to get to. But when the hotel was operating, they actually had a rope bridge that you could walk over there, and they had built. You can find the little pathways aligned with rock and so over that shows where the tent platforms were. But so anyway, it did have electricity.
Where did the water come from Pelton wheel? That's from the
Well,
river, but you need force.
we have speculated. We have found pipe down by McKinney Creek that indicated that maybe that's where they first installed it, but then discovered that McKinney Creek dried up in the late summer. We have found more pipe up on the Rubicon River by the falls up there, and where our cabin is up there. So we suspect that it didn't work very well here, so they moved it up there, and that's probably where it was last used. It's a different story to how it got back in here, but which I might as well tell you. Anyway, at a session very similar to this, I've been doing this for a long time, but I love doing it. Anyway, after the meeting, the talk, a guy came up to me and says, many years ago, some friends and I, we took the Pelton wheel out of here, and would you like to have it back? I said, certainly. So they had taken it down on the Truckee River. This side is the Squaw Valley turnoff, and there's a few cabins on the other side of the river, but there's no access to them by vehicle. There's a footbridge at that point, and when the water was low, they were actually driving through they had Jeeps, and they were driving through four-wheel drive vehicles. I don't want you to throw me out. Anyway, I made arrangements with the younger son of that group that when the water was down, I'd come down and pick it up. So I put my trailer on and we went down there, and I rigged a boom I have a PTO winch on mine. I rigged a boom, which I'd done several times over the years, on the front to pick it up with, and was going to just pick it up and set it in the trailer. But when I started winding in to pick it up, the back of the Jeep came up. And so that wasn't going to work. So we had to disassemble it some to be able to get pieces that I could pick up and put in the trailer. Got it all tied down, and came back across the river, and tie rod end broke on my Jeep. But it just happened to go on the foot trail there and into a little alcove area that I had no control, but that's just where it went. Somebody was watching.
Yeah.
So I had to leave it there overnight. I came back to my cabin. I have a cabin at Tahoma, and I had some spare parts there. I went back and next morning and fixed it, the tie rod, and brought it on in. And the young fella that had been with it, he wanted to come in with it. So he and I came in that night or afternoon, brought it in, and we set it down here. There was Mark Smith had a group in here at the time, and he wasn't too excited about it, but that wasn't any problem. So anyway, I unloaded it here. But yeah, I got ahead of myself. All of the trip down, I had that tied down. Everything worked fine. Didn't move. Nothing broke. Nothing came out. The last turn, right around, come here, my outside wheel caught a boulder and flopped the trailer.
Oh.
And the nameplate, it landed right on the nameplate. And after we got it back up and down here unloaded, we realized the nameplate was missing. The young kid that came in with me went back up there on the trail, and between the two of us, we sifted through the dirt and sand up there and found the plate. But we didn't put it back on because we knew somebody else would take it off. So anyway, I have that plate. But then on my way out, it got dark I wasn't intending to stay that late, but it got dark on me, and just soon after you hit from the Rubicon Trail to the county road, or the other McKinney Road, my steering went out again.
Oh, no.
Pitch dark, just totally pitch dark. And it was one of those stupid things when you think you're going to be early, etc., and then it doesn't work that way, and here I am late. I didn't have a flashlight. I didn't have anything. I couldn't even see my hand. It was so dark. So I just started walking, and I walked out to my place. It was 5 miles. I clocked it later with my Cherokee, but it made an interesting trip. But anyway, I got off the subject. That was my problem. So anyway, the Pelton wheel is over there, and it is a Pelton Noble, not a straight Pelton. And the point is that Pelton designed the cup, but had been effective for many years, but the backsides were just straight, in a sense. So Noble came along and got with Pelton and figured out that they could shape the backside of the cups similar to a woman's bra, really, and that would reduce the resistance in the backflow. And so this is a Pelton Noble. You can see the shape of the cups there. It's been used a lot and it's been repaired a lot. It could be refurbished and put back in service if somebody wanted to. All right, let's get back where we're going here. All right. Some of you probably are new enough on the trail to have never seen the Cadillac that named Cadillac Hill. It is still there, the remains of it, but not much of it's left. When I first saw it, it was a full vehicle. It was all, and should have been towed out of here early on and restored. It was a nice bit, that big old Cadillac V8 it was a 29 Cadillac, and that it was not like a Ford V8 where it's all one block. Each cylinder was its own in block, and anyway, it was a big V8, and it was actually I believe it was a limousine or a longer model, because there was arguments by, I don't know where it started. Nobody seemed to know how it got started, but people were trying to say it was a LaSalle, not a Cadillac. So I figured, well, all right, LaSalle was just a model of Cadillac, so what? It's still a Cadillac in that sense. But I decided I wanted to prove it one way or the other. So a friend of mine from the Lake Tahoe Highlands, we came in one day and went down in the brush and cut our way around and had to cut a hole in the fender and so forth, but I was able to tape the wheelbase. It's a Cadillac. Yeah, there was LaSalle was 90. Anyway, there was a 6-inch difference in wheelbase, and it's definitely a Cadillac. How the LaSalle rumor got started, I have no idea. But when I was in here the first time with my '39 Dodge, it was a complete automobile, sitting off the edge there, and I actually took the emblem off of it, but being just a kid at the time, I don't know what I did with it. I haven't been able to find it, but it was quite a car.
Did it go over the side, or?
Originally, it was stopped right on the trail with the direction of drive. Over the years, it got pushed around and pushed, kicked, and whatever, and then some way it got turned crossways, and the back end over the bank. And it sat that way for a long time, and then it got cannibalized to where there's all that's left up there now is a frame and fenders, and the axles, I think, are still under it. But that's the way I was able to get the wheelbase, by crawling down in the brush and measuring what was left of it. But it's a shame. It should have been taken out of here. Oh, and that reminds me of another story that I should be telling. Excuse me. Back in about 1930, probably 37, 38, there was a story in one of the newspapers, I think it was Placerville Times, of a family that had been trying to make the trail run this road in a I think it was a 36 or 37 Chevrolet, and they had tried it several times and they had broken and had to walk out and then haul the car out, but they were determined to do it. So this year they broke again, but they hiked out, got their axle, came back and fixed it, and were driving on out, and they made it out. And in that article there was a comment, and there was an old Cadillac having trouble, but we don't think it was going to make it. so that further strengthens the fact that it was a Cadillac, because I believe that was the Cadillac. Over here by the mechanics area, there's an old frame. A number of years ago, I put up a sign, guess what it is, identify it, and win a prize. And I think the prize was going to be a hamburger or something. Anyway, I got a lot of comments, but I've studied it over the years and tried to figure it out. I don't really know what it is, but my best guess is that it's a Franklin, a 29. No. Yeah, about a 29 Franklin, and the reason for that is that on some of the castings there's an F, but the first thought is Ford, but it's a block F, not the Ford scroll F. So it was about that 29 when Franklin switched from wood frames to steel frames, metal frames, and it's a steel frame, and it has that stamped F in the castings. So I'm guessing it's a 29 Franklin, but if you can prove me wrong, I'd like you to do it.
You still get the hamburger?
Yeah, I'll buy you the hamburger.
Maybe a little stale.
Across from the caretaker's cabin, there's a big rock that has the Geological Survey benchmark in it, which verifies the elevation, etc., if you haven't seen it. And then next to that are some Indian grinding holes. And the Indians spent a lot of time in here. We found arrowheads. There's been piles of arrowheads found. I found a spearhead right by the cabin there after we built a new cabin. It was still arrowheads coming up out of the ground. And my brain was playing tricks with me yesterday, and it's doing it again today, but not so bad. How I like to start out this, and I'm going to go back and start again. I want you to think about this place, how it was 300 years ago. This had to be a paradise for the Native Americans. The Miwoks, the Paiutes, and the Washos were all in this area, and that may be the abundance of arrowheads. Maybe they fought over it. I don't know. But how could they find a better way to spend summer? Water, game, weather, everything. So this was a Native American paradise. And we need to keep that thought of it and keep it that way. It's now our paradise. Okay, not going to get thrown out yet, I don't think.
You own the place.
Huh?
You own the place. How can you get thrown out?
Okay, there was another. We have, like I was saying, there's 400 acres in the main property, and this we're now on a half section. This is the east half of the section. The section line is at about the ridge on the other side of the river here. It's such a choice piece of property that it's mind-boggling that we could have this good a piece of property. But the river essentially runs right down through the middle of that half section, and so that's where we are. And then there's an 80-acre leg goes off to the east at the far end down there. And that was known as the Potter property. Potter had owned that back in the days when the hotel was operating. And there's another spring back there that you can find if you walk back there. We don't let vehicles drive back there. There's a beautiful meadow that somebody would spin a hooker in. Unfortunately, we have a few people that don't understand what we have here. But anyway, we have the owners have built a cabin back there, which is nicknamed the mansion. Unfortunately, it is so far from the activity that we rarely use it, but it could be available other times to spend time back there. But anyway, that's beside the point. The Potter the owner had a cabin back there, a stone cabin at one time, and we know where that was. I do anyway, and I think I'm probably one of the few that know where it was now. And we are not identifying it because we're saving it for the archaeologists to do a little exploring first. But there is another cabin there that was built by and known as the Stone Cabin. And probably some of you have been back there. It was built by a guy that was working on the Buck Island Dam. And in his spare time and weekends, I guess, he walked down here and built that cabin out of stone and against a big rock and so forth. And I can't visualize him hiking back and forth to Buck Island Lake every day, but he might have, or at least he spent his weekends there. And it was in his family, his family used it for many years, and we're using it yet when we bought the property here. They thought they owned it, but that really wasn't the case. I was willing to make a deal with them to let them keep using it, but Mark Smith got high and mighty about it and ran them out. I never liked that, but that's what happened. So it's our caretakers have been taking care of it enough that you can still get a look at it, and keeping it from going all the way down. So anybody wants to hike out there, they can. And there's the Potter Spring is there if you want to look for it. And the easiest way to find the Potter Spring is the road going in. There's a Y that goes to the stone cabin, and there's a Y that goes to our mansion. And if you go towards the mansion and then watch for a foot trail off to the left, you can walk right to where the Potter Spring was. And it's up on a rock about probably 10 feet high is where the spring is coming out. And down below there's the remains of a log watering trough. And so he was letting the runoff of the spring fill the watering trough for his stock to drink. It was really a nicely carved watering trough out of a log, but it's pretty well rotten now. You might be able to identify it. The flavor of the spring, I like it better than this one, but this one's okay. But I like that one a little better. But it's hard to. It's up in the rock, and it just gives you a little, probably a half a quart of water that you can dip into, and it hadn't been kept clean, so you have to be a little careful about getting the leaves and stuff out of it. But it's pretty good water.
It was a little too murky yesterday to take a sip from.
I'm sorry?
It was a little too murky yesterday to take a sip from. At that spring.
It was.
It was dirty.
Oh, the spring was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was disappointed.
Yeah. Thank you, Becky. Becky, I don't know whether you know her or not, but she's one of the great ones. I have three special gals involved with Rubicon here, and Becky, Maria, if you know her, and Vicki Sanders. Yeah. Vicki Sanders is head of this with the county. She is one marvelous person. Back by the stone cabin, you can find carvings in the trees. I believe that it was sheep herders that lived back there and never went out. Maybe just for the winter, and then they come back and spend the summer in there. But anyway, there's a few carvings in the trees left from which I think were the herders of the goats or sheep. If you've walked back there, have you noticed trees cut off about 15 feet in the air? Do you know how that got done? How they got cut off at that level?
Bet the snow was that deep.
Avalanche, the snow, and beavers.
Beavers walking on the snow. That's where the tree was. That's where we cut it off. All right, give us some questions.
When did the whole Wentworth Springs Hotel and that kind of roadway all come into being so you could drive between Wentworth Springs and Rubicon Springs?
Well, at first it was a wagon and stagecoach road, and there actually was a stage every once in a while from between Wentworth and Rubicon. It had to be, let's see, the hotel went up in 1887, so I would say there was a good stage road in from McKinney at that time, and a trail on through, and I would say that it probably was at about that same time you could run a stagecoach through, because they did run through, and obviously there was a lot of work put into that road. We've destroyed most of it, but it's still obvious that it was a lot of work went into putting that road in.
Over at the stone cabin, on the markings on the tree, there's one tree that has initials and the date 779, and then an X and an arrow pointing straight down. Is there any speculation as to what that marker was for?
I have to admit, I'm not aware of that one.
It's right off the trail. If you're walking straight at the stone cabin,
haven't
right there.
I noticed it. I know that the sheep herders did a lot of some carving in the trees, and there could have been some Johnny-come-lately mimics put newer carvings in, but that particular one I don't know. So it may be just a gag, or there may be something there. We'll have to investigate. Anybody else?
What's the most interesting thing you guys have found when you were studying it or just digging up around here? I can't put
identification of any particular thing. There's been, when the hotel became abandoned, idiots stripped it. All the linen, I mean the china was still there, the silverware, all of it was left. There was too much work to haul it out, so when they abandoned the hotel, it just left. And the idiots started through the bed frames and everything. It was all thrown in the river here. The Rubicon Jamboree people and the owners here, we've done over the years cleanup of the river, hauling this stuff out. We have some bottles that were dated that we could identify pretty old, but I can't identify any particular thing.
Nothing like an old weapon or something?
No, my son that wrote the book here is a professional archaeologist, and he has studied a lot of this stuff, and he may have some notes that has identified more, but I don't have that knowledge at this point. Anybody else?
What do you guys think the future of the trail is between you and the county?
It is a county road. It is very valuable to El Dorado County.
Financially?
And yes, and to Placer County. They don't own it. I mean, let's say they don't own up to the idea that it's beneficial to Placer County because they haven't cared about. Although there are a couple of Placer County deputies in here right now, so they're trying to help. But what's your question?
Well, the future of the road. I mean, is
Oh, okay.
Because you see they're doing some work in certain spots.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just curious what they're.
El Dorado County is on top of it. It is a county road, and they want to keep it that way and maintain it as a four-wheel drive trail, not a paved road. But there has to be a certain amount of work done to avoid the Sierra Club claiming this and that.
Right.
So erosion and water control is the main thing. And El Dorado County has been doing a great job on it. The Rubicon Trail Foundation is working very strong on it also. And it is all of our intent to keep it going forever. And the only way we can lose it is if we abuse it. If we abuse it, we're going to lose it. But not from the fact that it's a county road, but from the water erosion and that sort of thing, water quality. But and a recent thing that has happened. Vicki Sanders, the ones who know her, know what a dynamo she is. But El Dorado County has made an agreement with Placer County that they will take control of the full trail. So that's good news, very good news. So if you look at the map and see the way the trail wiggles going out here, there was probably at one time it was all in El Dorado County. But when they defined the county lines, etc., at least I'm sure that they originally thought it was all in El Dorado County, but there's little bits that are in Placer County. So, but now that Placer has agreed with El Dorado to let Vicki handle it, that's a win-win.
Good deal.
How big is the property here that you all own?
I'm sorry?
How big is the property that you all own?
400 acres. We have a half section and 80 acres.
And then is the piece that the Friends of the Rubicon bought adjacent to this half
Yes,
section?
it's the other half.
They got the other half.
They've got the other half, and they're opening it and allowing camping on it, but there's no water.
Yeah.
And what we've experienced in the past, and still do, we have outhouses, we have water. People camp at Buck Island, come down here and use our outhouses and go back to Buck Island.
Yeah.
So anyway, they will. I believe the Rubicon Trail Foundation will put in some outhouses if they can get the right spots and get it right, and make it a little better. I have no doubt that the major traffic is still going to come down here.
Well, yeah, because they're never going to allow a lot of access to that, right? They're going to keep that.
Oh, they're
Designated
well.
zone.
I have no idea what the foundation's going to do with it, and hopefully it can be an asset. There's a lot of heavy camping at Buck Island, and the sanitation up there is I've heard some horrible stories, and of course El Dorado County is trying to get control of that, and the Rubicon Trail Foundation does have a pumper truck now, and so they're I believe putting in some pumping outhouses in there, but it's a long haul for them to come in and work it, but they're trying, and that's all good. We need to get as much as that. And if you haven't realized, here we are converting everything to pumping in Rubicon Springs here also. So we have much better sanitation here now. We have our own septic tank system approved by the county. We have our own pumper wagon, and so we pump the toilets here, and we have the dump station to handle it. And we're getting rid of the holes in the ground as fast as we can. Anybody else?
What's the biggest event that comes in here? How big is it?
Oh, the Jeepers Jamboree would, by a long shot, is the biggest event. There'll be 600 rigs in here in the end of July.
So you're looking at probably 1,500 people plus?
I would go three people to the Jeep.
Okay.
Wow.
It used to be
It's a lot.
only about 2, but with the 4 doors and the
Oh, yeah.
bigger Jeeps now, they bring more people.
Where do they park? I mean, it's pretty full now. And
Oh, it's
Oh, it'll look
camping
gorgeous.
from
Yeah.
the whole area here. It works well. There's a lot of room if you tighten them up, and that's what they have to do. Fortunately, this group is small enough you can spread out a little bit. But during the jamboree, the main jamboree is full.
Not everyone, you don't have to cook or you get
Right,
the whole
yeah,
meal,
that-
so you don't have your kitchen space.
Right? You need less in space because of that. All the food is furnished.
Is it basically the same dates?
I'm sorry.
Is it basically like the same time of the year? Is it what, like the third weekend in
It's
July
the
or
last
something?
weekend in July. Always. Last full weekend in July is the jamboree.
So if a person just comes down here on their own and they want to camp here on the property, do they just you stop at the caretaker's cabin there and they
On that
pay, or-
weekend, I would
Not
suggest
that weekend.
don't
not
come.
that weekend. No, not that. Just in general to come enjoy the area.
Because actually, the Jeepers Jamboree has an exclusive lease on the property for those times.
Sure.
And then there is a parade permit given to the Jamboree to close the road even.
Huh.
So don't come that weekend.
Right. Not that week. Just any other weekend we wanted to come up here, we stop and pay a camping fee here at the caretaker cabin.
Yes.
Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay.
Or you can make camp and then come down or they'll come by and see you.
All right. Yeah.
Mark and Maria are very good. They are wonderful people. Yeah, so yes, that's certainly our intent, to have it available to everybody as much as possible. I've overallotted my time. Anybody got a question?
No?
Thank you very much. These books are available if you want them. I have them.
I,
Okay, perfect.
how much?